All Dick Slater wanted for Christmas was a bunkhouse match, but all he's going to get is a bounty placed on his ugly head. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of Tyler Vance Rants. I am your host, Tyler Vance himself, and you're not. It is December 15th, 1984. Last week, the pride of the Carolinas, Don Kernodle, unsuccessfully trained with his brother Keith Larsen for an attempt to return to in-ring action. Roddy Piper took exception with the fact that pop star Cyndi Lauper is set to be honored by the WWF on December the 28th, and the NWA television champion Tully Blanchard laid out a challenge to the NWA World Heavyweight Champion, the Nature Boy, Ric Flair. We'll be tuning into the World Wrestling Federation's flagship show, Championship Wrestling, first this week, where we're immediately greeted by Vince McMahon, who has both Roddy Piper and Captain Albano with him. They're set to discuss that ceremony that I just mentioned for Cyndi Lauper. However, before we get to that discussion, we're instead shown footage of Lauper herself talking to thousands of fans before a performance about her part-time job as a wrestling manager, while the thousands in attendance simply wait for her to shut up and sing.
You see, I have an undefeated record, and my girl, Wendy Richter. Oh, you want to say hello to Wendy Richter?
An undefeated wrestling manager is what Cyndi Lauper is touting herself as. Talk about delusional! The fabulous Moolah was the true winner back at the Brawl to End It All, not that bimbo Wendy Richter.
I, for one, cannot think of a more deserving individual to be honored.
I can. You have two of them standing right next to you at the moment, you moron. The WWF Intercontinental Champion, Greg the Hammer Valentine, who's accompanied by one of the men that's currently being snubbed by the World Wrestling Federation in Captain Albano, takes on Aldo Marino one-on-one next. The non-title match is joined in progress as both Vince McMahon and the living legend Bruno Sammartino call the action. Valentine is completely in control of Marino as we join the match, hitting Aldo with a suplex before tossing him outside of the ring where the trash belongs. The Hammer then brings his opponent back into the ring with a body slam before forcing Aldo Marino to submit with a figure 4 leg lock. Piper's Pit immediately follows the match, and the guest this week is that hillbilly who's been seen ringside at practically every single WWF event the past couple of months.
There. Can you play the banjo?
He identifies himself as
My name's Big Jim. Big Jim.
Hot Rod immediately starts the interview off by asking an important question. Has Big Jim ever wrestled before?
Well, I've wrestled a little bit around the house. That's about all.
Roddy Piper then, impressed with the hillbilly size, offers him the opportunity of a lifetime.
Why don't you let somebody like me take you and give you a chance? I don't know, Mr. Piper. Wait a second, what don't you know? I just like to get the best person available, to... Well, I'm the best person. I have to ask the people. I don't know. I'll just ask them what they think. You want to look like that all your life as compared to this, you didn't have as much on the ball as I thought.
Why on earth would you listen to the animals in the crowd for career advice? Not everybody is handed a golden ticket to compete in the WWF, let alone be managed by one of the best of all time in Roddy Piper. And Big Jim threw it all away just so he could get a couple of cheers and maybe a little applause from people that will forget all about him in a week's time. They sure do raise him dumb down in Kentucky. RT Reynolds takes on Tito Santana one-on-one next, and as the bell rings, Santana is immediately all over Reynolds, forcing RT outside of the ring and making him reevaluate his tactics. RT Reynolds manages to Irish whip Tito Santana into the corner once he's back inside the squared circle, but subsequently misses a knee in the corner. This opens the way for Santana to work over his opponent's leg, applying a figure 4 leg lock to get the win. Once more, we're in the paradise that is Hawaii, and once again, Don Muraco teases me with what could be.
How can you snuggle with lovely things like this with all those lousy clothes on?
The main event of WWF Championship Wrestling is a tag team match. The Iron Sheik and Nikolai Volkoff, who are accompanied by their manager, Classy Freddie Blassie, take on Barry Windham and Mike Rotundo. Nikolai Volkoff demands that all of you show me proper respect while he sings the Soviet-Russian national anthem. For once, Volkoff is able to finish singing his national anthem without any issue. However, both Windham and Rotundo turn their backs on their opponents as the bell rings, and they learn the hard way as to why that's never a good idea. They are, however, able to fight back by whipping the Iranian and the Russian together, forcing both the Iron Sheik and Nikolai Volkoff to head outside of the ring and regroup with Blassie. Back inside the squared circle, the Iron Sheik misses an elbow on Mike Rotundo, who responds by body slamming the former WWF champion. Nikolai Volkoff gets tagged in, as does Barry Windham, who hits the Russian with 2 drop kicks. Windham then tries to go for another drop kick as the Russian comes off of the ropes, however Nikolai Volkoff hangs on, causing Barry Windham to crash and burn. As the Iron Sheik gets the tag, so does Mike Rotundo, and Rotundo manages to put the Iron Sheik into an airplane spin, which results in a 2 count that's thankfully interrupted by Nikolai Volkoff. Barry Windham is tagged in yet again, and hits a bulldog on the Iron Sheik, forcing the Iranian's partner, Nikolai Volkoff, to come to his aid yet again. This results in a melee breaking out.
It looked like Volkoff intentionally struck the referee. Automatic disqualification, there it is.
The Iron Sheik and Nikolai Volkoff are disqualified? Are you kidding me? Barry Windham and Mike Rotundo started it. Even more, you should have moved out of the way, you stupid referee. My blood is boiling, and with the NWA's Worldwide Wrestling program still to go, I might just have a rage-induced heart attack by the end of it. Crotchety David Crockett, Johnny Weaver, and Tony Schiavone are all on commentary, considering that Crockett needs all the help that he can get. At least with Schiavone there, we stand somewhat of a chance of having a professional broadcast this week. The first match of Worldwide Wrestling is a non-title singles match between the NWA United States Heavyweight Champion Chief Wahoo McDaniel and Tommy Lane. Chief McDaniel hits Lane with a back suplex before sending Tommy down moments later again with a vicious chop. Tommy Lane fights back with a shoulder block, but catches another one of the Chief's chops, going down for the 3 count. Crotchety David Crockett's first of many interviews this week is with the #1 contender to Chief Wahoo McDaniel's NWA United States Heavyweight Championship, Avalanche Buzz Tyler. There is no apology for the uncivilized behavior that Avalanche Buzz Tyler demonstrated at the end of last week's Worldwide Wrestling. Instead, Tyler does his best to describe what it's like receiving one of Chief McDaniel's chops.
Have one of your friends or associates take a 2x4 and hit you across the chest.
Buzz Tyler has become so obsessed with Chief Wahoo McDaniel that I honestly believe that the NWA United States Heavyweight Championship has become second thought to him.
I want you to drink, eat, sleep, Buzz Avalanche Tyler. I'm gonna breathe down your neck, Wahoo. I'm gonna follow you everywhere you go.
Why? Because Avalanche Buzz Tyler is a sick weirdo. 6-man tag team action is next as criminal accomplices Dick Slater and the NWA World Tag Team Champions, the American Dream Dusty Rhodes, and the Raging Bull Manny Fernandez take on Gary Royal, Jeff Sword, and Joel Deaton. Slater goes nuts as soon as the bell rings, pulling every single one of his opponents into the squared circle, resulting in Rhodes and Fernandez joining in. Together, the 3 vigilantes chase Royal, Sword, and Deaton outside of the ring. And if I were you gentlemen, I'd keep running, because if you leave it to chance, Rhodes, Fernandez, and Slater will eat you for lunch. I feel like I'm psychic, because moments later, the American Dream hits an elbow onto Joel Deaton to win the match for his team. Next up, Crotchety David Crockett taunts Paul Jones backstage. It should be an interview, but since David has the last name Crockett, he says screw professionalism and instead decides to get snarky with Jones.
Paul Jones, you're bringing more and more people into the area for your protection.
You want to say something?
All right, wait a minute. All right, you paid him a lot of money. But what is this special surprise I've been hearing about?
Well, David, if you let the man speak, you'd know that Paul Jones is going into 1985 a happy man, as he's going to take all of his clients, new and old, and force everyone in the National Wrestling Alliance to take notice. Paul Jones's army lives on. More singles action follows as half of the NWA Mid-Atlantic Tag Team Champions, Black Bart, who's accompanied by his manager James J. Dillon, faces off against Lee Ramsey one-on-one. To start the match off, Lee Ramsey slams Black Bart's head into a corner turnbuckle, but Black Bart decides, you know what, that was a lot of fun, and proceeds to slam his own head into that same turnbuckle several times in an effort to intimidate Ramsey, which works. Bart lifts Ramsey up and drops his head down onto a turnbuckle before tossing him outside of the ring. Bart continues his vicious streak, following Lee Ramsey outside of the ring and slamming him into the guardrail before James J. Dillon decides, you know what, he's gonna get a piece of the action too. Once the pair are back inside the squared circle, Black Bart absolutely mauls Lee Ramsey in the ropes. And the NWA Mid-Atlantic Tag Team Champion then goes for a pin, but decides no, he's going to inflict more punishment on his opponent, and then drapes Lee Ramsey over the ropes neck first. Another pin is again interrupted by Bart, who slams Ramsey's head down into the mat several times before a massive leg drop mercifully puts Lee Ramsey out of action. The NWA World Heavyweight Champion, the Nature Boy Ric Flair, is crotchety David Crockett's next guest backstage. And now that Starrcade 84 is done, Crockett wants to know what's next for the champion. Well, the Nature Boy has definitely heard of the several complaints from his Starrcade 84 opponent, the American Dream Dusty Rhodes, and simply has this to say.
Rhodes, that's your problem.
From now on, if Dusty Rhodes doesn't keep his mouth shut, Ric Flair is going to get a partner of his own so that he can strip the American Dream of his precious NWA World Tag Team Championships. Hey, I'd love to see that. Crotchety David Crockett's next guest backstage is Assassin Number 1, who states that every single thing in his career has now taken a back seat until he fulfills his promise that he made to the Boogie Woogie Man Jimmy Valiant in getting rid of Paul Jones. The Masked Man then asks every single fan to be as vitriolic as possible towards Jones going forward in an effort to make his life as miserable as possible.
I'm going to engage Mr. Jones in some psychological warfare.
I'd hate to see what happens to Assassin Number 1's ex-girlfriends if this is how he acts over getting fired. Oh, and speaking of the Boogie Woogie Maniac Jimmy Valiant, he's currently not allowed to compete in the Mid-Atlantic Championship Wrestling area due to losing the Tuxedo Street Fight against Paul Jones at Starrcade 84. But unfortunately for us, Valiant still has something to say about it all.
I won't be able to see my brothers and sisters. I won't be able to see my people no more.
Valiant has gathered up all of his money, $15 by the looks of it, in an effort to bail his friend Charlie Brown out of prison so that Brown can come back to the Mid-Atlantic Championship Wrestling area and take out both James J. Dillon and Paul Jones.
People know who I'm talking about, and that's Charlie Brown from out of town.
You're kidding me, right? How stupid does this idiot think that we are? We know that you're Charlie Brown, you moron. You admitted to it prior to Starrcade. I swear, if Jimmy Valiant shows up in the Mid-Atlantic Championship Wrestling area and starts competing as Charlie Brown yet again without repercussion, I'm going to blow a gasket. The much anticipated arrival of Magnum TA is here as he faces off against the Inferno in one-on-one action next. If you were excited to see Magnum TA arrive in the Mid-Atlantic Championship Wrestling area, well, enjoy the match while it lasts, because all it takes is a body slam and a belly-to-belly suplex before 1, 2, 3, Magnum TA is gone. After suffering a heinous humiliation last week at the hands of the American Dream Dusty Rhodes, the Raging Loser Manny Fernandez, Crying Ricky Steamboat, and Dick Slater, James J. Dillon has issued a bounty on all 4 of their heads, and thrown in Avalanche Buzz Tyler to boot, considering Tyler considers all 4 of them friends. See, it's the season of giving, and Dillon is giving out big loads of money to anybody that can capitalize on any of those bounties, as well as the ability to be managed specifically by Dillon himself. It's the gift that just keeps on giving.
We will see who gets the last laugh.
The NWA Television Championship, as well as $10,000, are up for grabs yet again as Mike Davis looks to dethrone the champion Tully Blanchard. A feeling out process starts the match off as both men engage in some chain wrestling before Davis is able to employ a side headlock. Blanchard simply rolls the challenger over for a pin, but that crooked referee shoves Davis back into a controlling position. I'm about to burst with anger. Since this is now a handicap match against Tully Blanchard, Mike Davis is able to hip toss the champion, who simply rolls outside of the ring in an effort to catch his breath. Once back inside the squared circle, Davis hits a huge back body drop on Blanchard and goes for the pin, which thankfully only results in a 2 count. Tully Blanchard immediately responds by dumping Mike Davis onto the ring ropes before finishing the challenger off with a slingshot suplex, much to the referee's dismay, I'm sure. I want that referee's license revoked, I want him fined, and I want him suspended. Be grateful I don't want him fired as well. The main event of Worldwide Wrestling sees the uncle and nephew team of the Russian Bear and the Russian Nightmare, Ivan and Nikita Koloff, take on Sam Houston and the absent Mark Fleming. I say absent because Fleming is nowhere to be seen. Why is Keith Larsen coming out here? You can't just decide to compete in a match that someone else has signed a contract to be in. If Fleming didn't show, then that's too bad for Sam Houston. Referee, get Keith Larsen the hell out of here. Sam Houston is brutalized so badly by the Russians that Keith Larsen thankfully never has an opportunity to illegally enter himself into the match. Nikita Koloff simply finishes Houston off with a clothesline before he's unceremoniously attacked from behind by Keith Larsen. First, he inserts himself into a match that he has no business being a part of, and now he's attacking the victors from behind without provocation. The Kernodles truly are the shame of the Carolinas with how they act. Too bad for Keith, considering he'll never see any of the Kernodles again now that Ivan Koloff has strung him up by the neck with the Russian Bear's trusty chain. Rest in peace, you pathetic moron. Except here comes Don Kernodle to save the day, attacking Ivan Koloff from behind and even managing to wrestle the Russian Bear's chain from him, using it to chase both he and Nikita Koloff to the backstage area before the shame of the Carolinas goes back to the squared circle to check on his presumably deceased brother. Several other wrestlers also rush to the ring to check on Keith Larsen, and instead of waiting for medical professionals to arrive and do the job properly, they all decide as a group to transport Keith Larsen to the locker room area as unsafely as possible. If Larsen does die, don't blame the Koloffs, blame these goofs. The shame of the Carolinas, Don Kernodle is so concerned with his brother's ailing health that he still has time to grab the Soviet-Russian flag that both the Koloffs brought with them to the ring before joining the gaggle of idiots in the locker room, stripping his clothes off, and then screaming that both Ivan and Nikita Koloff will pay before spitting on their flag.
This is what I think of you and your country.
With that, Worldwide Wrestling and the week comes to an end. The whole situation with Keith Larsen could have easily been avoided if he'd simply minded his own business. He had no right inserting himself into a match against the Russian Bear and the Russian Nightmare, Ivan and Nikita Koloff. He got what he deserved, frankly. Someone else that's going to get what he deserves is Dick Slater, along with his criminal accomplices, the American Dream Dusty Rhodes, the Raging Loser Manny Fernandez, Cryin' Ricky Steamboat, and Avalanche Buzz Tyler. James J. Dillon has not only promised to unleash the full fury of his Long Riders against them, but he's now issued a bounty that any wrestler in the entire world can cash in on. Maybe even that hillbilly Big Jim, considering that he turned down a lucrative offer to be managed by Rowdy Roddy Piper. It really doesn't matter to me who claims the bounties, just as long as long overdue justice is dished out slow and painful to the recipients. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of Tyler Vance Rants. You can dish out your own form of justice by hitting the bell, liking the video, and subscribing. You can also follow me on social media where I give out pro wrestling goodness on a daily basis. That'll be it for now, so I'll see you next week. So long. WWF, what am I? from the South. Next up, crotchety David Crockett taunts. Somebody forgot to mention James Jerry Dillon. Dillon!